Welcome back to the show, folks. We have an amazing episode for you this week. And I know I always say it's an amazing episode. And I think part of that is because I'm so fortunate to get to talk to some of the top minds in the longevity, regenerative, and health space, really. And it's why I love my job. But today's guest is really someone who is breaking new ground and doing things that people thought would never be possible. Her name is Liz Parrish, and she's one of those people I have always wanted to interview on this podcast. And in many ways, I'm glad that it took me this long to get to it, because the work that she has accomplished and is doing now is nothing short of jaw-dropping. Before we jump into the episode, of course, we want to thank a couple of our sponsors, because they are the ones who make the show possible. And the other people that make the show possible, of course, is you, for listening to the podcast, for being so keen on the products that we talk about, and for engaging with the content. So thank you for all that. For those of you who would like to connect with me a little bit more deeply, you can follow me on Instagram, which is just at Natalie Nidham. Or you can go to my website, natnidham.com. You can sign up for my weekly newsletter. And if you really want to hang out and maybe do some live Q&As and stuff like that, you might want to check out my membership community. And you can do all of that at natnidham.com, which is my website. Okay, let's go ahead and thank a couple of sponsors and give you a little bit of insight into the episode. And then we get to jump right in. Are you avoiding the dentist like it's a high school reunion? If your gums are receding, your enamel is thinning, your teeth are chipped, or feel more sensitive lately, that's your mouth saying it needs backup. Now, I recently learned about this incredible peptide product, and I just had to try it. Oral Tide Pro, a peptide-powered mouthwash that promotes gum regeneration, repairs enamel, and keeps inflammation in check. And I'm telling you guys, this is not a joke. I honestly didn't even know that gums could grow back, or that chipped teeth could even sometimes regenerate. Then I heard from friends of mine who were able to skip the expensive dental surgery and heal their gum recession and sensitivity with this simple mouth rinse. This stuff is next level. ACDP peptides boost collagen in your gums. DRP peptides help you mineralize enamel. It's fluoride-free, alcohol-free, made from food-grade ingredients, and has a 5% xylitol bonus for antimicrobial protection. Now, for best results, you want to use this product daily for 2 to 3 months. Whether you're in damage control mode or just want to future-proof your smile, you've got to check out Oral Tide Pro. And it comes to us from our friends at Profound Health. That's right. These are the guys that also sell Nature's Marvels bioregulators that you've heard me talk about ad nauseum. So all you got to do to get your hands on some of the stuff is go to profound-health.com and use code NAT15 for 15% off your first order. Now, in some areas of the world, you may have to pay a little extra for shipping, but guys, it's pennies compared to what dental surgery costs. Not to mention, it saves you from the agony of sensitive teeth and gums. And also, for best results, you're going to want to use this stuff for 2 to 3 months. So order 2 to 3 bottles and amortize that shipping cost. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. I have lost count of the number of people in my communities who rave about the benefits, and I myself am using it. It rocks. If you've ever wondered who's actually out there testing the most cutting-edge anti-aging therapies, meet Liz Parrish. She is not just studying gene therapy. She is the study. In this episode, we talk about how reprogramming your own stem cells could turn back the clock on everything from muscle loss to dementia. Liz shares why treating aging might be the fastest route to curing childhood diseases, and why telomeres, those little caps on your chromosomes, are more important than most people realize. This conversation is a ride through science, strategy, and big picture longevity thinking. I really think you guys are going to love this. You know that feeling when you're firing on all cylinders, mentally sharp, physically energized, and just on point? What if you could bottle that? Even with a balanced diet and regular workouts, I've noticed my energy levels weren't always as consistent as I wanted, especially when I'm traveling through different time zones, which happens a lot. I wanted something that could support my body at a cellular level. In fact, that's what I'm often looking for in a supplement. So I added NMN plus G to my supplement cycle. It's a scientifically formulated blend of NMN, geneticides from Panax ginseng, and apigenin. Together, they enhance mitochondrial function, they boost NAD plus levels, and support cellular repair. NMN plus G stands out because it's designed for optimal absorption. The ginsenosides improve delivery into deeper tissues, ensuring you get the full benefits where it matters most. Plus, it's free from unnecessary excipients, making it a cleaner choice. If you want to try it out, go to wizardsciences.com and look for NMN plus G. Use code NAT15 at checkout to get 15% off your purchase. Liz Parrish, welcome to the show. I have to say, this is a dream interview of mine. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here.
Thanks for having me. I was so honored when you asked, so this will be wonderful.
Well, I've been stalking you for a while, and I saw you from a distance, well, not in a good way. I saw you from a distance at RadFest last September, and I'm like, I just put it out there. I'm like, okay, Liz Parrish on the podcast. We can't have a podcast talking about longevity and not have you on the podcast. So here we are. I'm super excited. I want to start really with kind of what started your journey into biotech, which I would think it kind of like that first spark happened when your son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a child.
It happened about 2 years before, believe it or not. I was working for a nonprofit for the advocacy of the use of stem cells.
Oh, no kidding.
So,
okay,
yeah, it was.
We missed that part. Okay.
I know. It was a volunteer project that was there to help the public understand what embryonic stem cells were and weren't, and how important it was to fund the use of stem cells, because most stem cell use, over 90%, was not embryonic stem cells. And so I fell in love with genetics during that project. Why does a stem cell have the capacity that it has to regenerate when other cells in your body don't, if they all have the same genes? But that was sort of set the stage and the precursor for my son being diagnosed. And then at that point, I had a lot of information of the technology that was out there, and I saw how it was not translating to kids.
Right. That's amazing. So you were studying stem cells, but genetic cures is really what is the direction you ended up going in, right?
Yeah, it was neat because as we went deeper and deeper with the project, I got to meet a couple of epigeneticists, and those are people who essentially study and describe how genes are either turned on and off in certain cells, and why certain cells behave as olfactory, you can smell, and why other cells have the regenerative capacity to heal you if you get hurt. And so I started to look into what was happening in genetics, and I thought, this might be the route that we want to go for regenerative medicine, even over the stem cell, especially if we can help the cells produce the factors that stem cells create in the body that tell the tissues to repair. And that put me into introduction with someone who was working in that space. They actually had some patent pendings in that space, but this was all on the precipice of my son being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So I had an arsenal of information. I'm not sure that I could have just ended up in Children's Hospital and then had the wherewithal to say, I know we're doing things wrong. It's just by the time I ended up there, I could see that clearly.
Yeah, you kind of had that. So when did you make the leap into, when did you decide you wanted to take on aging and disease at the genetic level? Because that's your sweet spot.
Yeah, that seems like a really weird juxtaposition to childhood disease. So when my son was diagnosed, I essentially tirelessly started traveling, looking for how we would actually translate curative medicine to children. And I ended up at a conference about aging. They had the professor of genetics, George Church, speaking there. He 2 years later became a founder of my company. And I had a lot of questions for the people speaking there. I really didn't know how to find just a hardcore conference on genetics, and this one was speaking on genetics. It just so happened to be one of Aubrey de Grey's conferences, but it was a great place for me, I guess, to end up.
Somehow end up where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there, whether we know it or not.
I have more faith in the universe now than ever before because of the weird twisted pattern that you take. And anyway, I started to speak to people who were coming off the stage who were working on genetics. And it just so happened that the path of childhood disease and aging associated diseases were underpinned by some of the same genetic, let's say, loss of function in genes. And so from progeria, that is a lamina A deficit. They basically have a mutation in their lamina A gene. They create more progerin than other people, and they get short telomeres very early in life, and they die of all the diseases of aging that we die of, but at a very young age. And then other neurodegenerative diseases that would benefit from a gene called Clotho, to muscular dystrophies that had already shown benefit in genes like follistatin. So what I realized after speaking to many people at that conference, and then for 2 years, I don't know if you know, it took me 2 years to create our company after that, is that working in children was very difficult.
Yeah.
And at that point, things like autoimmune diseases, like my son had, were very, very difficult to tackle. And by using a consenting adult population, we could actually expedite these treatments to kids. And so that's kind of where I started to take the turn and say, well, if we could treat an aging population, meaning almost everyone on the planet, with these other genes, de-risk the technology for children, make sure that they get it quicker, then now we've got something, and we can move much more quickly.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Is your son still a type 1 diabetic, or have you solved that problem?
He is, but we have the first pipeline to a treatment with a patient's own cells, reprogrammed and put into the body in immune privileged zones. And that's with a concierge, a longevity concierge group in Switzerland, and with high-tech Swiss doctors and doctors in the Middle East. And we're hoping that we have a treatment that will be like a conferred cure for years at a time for these patients. And that has taken us years to build that bottleneck. So thanks for asking.
Well,
so I'm hoping to soon, probably in the next year and a half, get to close that chapter of the book.
What an incredible accomplishment. Just if that was the only one, that would be an unbelievable accomplishment.
And that took genetics as well. So
for sure.
we took everything that we learned and we built on over the last 10 years to make that happen.
So you've mentioned stem cells and you've mentioned genetics. So I'm going to go off my script here a little bit and ask you to help the audience understand the difference, because a lot of people right now talk about stem cell treatments or exosome treatments and things that can help to modulate the immune system or drive regeneration in the system. I interviewed someone not too long ago who has shown that he can trigger regeneration of cartilage by injecting exosomes into the bone edge. But that is very different than taking someone who has I'll call it a defective gene, but has a specific gene variant that the stem cells aren't going to fix the gene. They might initiate processes at a cellular level, but when we're going to get into our next topic here, but the gene acting at the genetic level is very different than acting at the stem cell level, right?
Yeah, it is. So when a person has a single gene mutation, we call those monogenic diseases. And those are things like hemophilia A, hemophilia B, and a slew of, severe combined immune deficiency. They have very big names, and they're a very small amount of the population. And what it means is they're just dying at a different rate than we are. So number one, I want to take it off the board that there are people who are just, healthy. And then there are people who are generally very unhealthy, because actually every year we're growing more and more unhealthy, even in a natural lifespan. But these individuals are generally born with a allele switch in which affects their health span and their lifespan significantly. And so for people who, think gene therapy is a future technology, I'll tell you there are 13 approved gene therapies in the United States for those diseases now. Wow. The gene therapy space has actually moved rather quickly because it's a very exacting technology. Instead of taking drugs that might hurt a myriad of your organs looking for a side effect that would benefit you, we can just put the genes in the cells, the healthy functioning gene, and it often overrides the malformed gene and creates a curative effect for these people. I think there was just a paper out yesterday that hemophilia, one of the hemophilias, it was either A or B, the treatment now, a one-time treatment has now lasted for over 13 years in those patients.
Wow.
And some of the kids that were treated with severe combined immune deficiency in the 1990s are still free of the disease. So
that's incredible.
We know it works, and we know it's beneficial. And so what gene therapy can do is that it can replace a dysfunctional gene. But what we're looking at is the dysfunction of aging over time. So the gene function that goes down over time, we replace those genes. It comes with almost no side effects except for the benefit of the upregulated protein. And then you have the protein amount that you had when you were in your 20s. And so when we look at stem cells, on the other hand, stem cells are your regenerative cells. We have a really neat licensing program with a stem cell company now who will now be taking. So let's look at stem cells. You can use stem cells from somewhere else. And in that case, they're very unlikely to set up shop in your body because they're not your natural tissue. But they'll probably exude some factors, exosomes, that will tell the area to repair. So that's kind of the stem cells' benefit. But with this new company, we'll be taking your stem cells, we'll reprogram them to a young age, and then we're going to lengthen their telomeres or give them special gene function, depending on what we're treating, from neurodegenerative disease to muscle loss to cardiovascular disease, our immune senescence, and then we'll re-inject them into you, and then they will hone in and actually stay in your body. And so the area of stem cells is vastly, with us, working into a genetically modified stem cell. And I'll tell you why stem cells are important. So when you're born, let's say you have 100% of your stem cells, and those stem cells are set to grow you into an adult. Right. And so they have to, repair, you fall down, they got to, fix your skin knees, they got to fix your broken bones if you're so unlucky to get some. They need to grow your entire body. And by the time you're 65, you only have 5% of those. And we see that reflected in bone healing, wound healing, and everything else. So you really need those stem cells. So this is a cool thing. And this is kind of like something we weren't going to talk about. But now we're going to take your stem cells, we're going to reprogram them and make it so you have the equivalent to 50 or more % of those stem cells in your body. So the stem cell can rebuild your body. The gene therapy can just upregulate gene function. Exosomes, on the other hand, are a product of the stem cell, and they are something that you could also upregulate a protein with gene therapy, but they're so affordable that just injecting them for some people is the route that they would go.
It's the right to go. That's amazing. And so tell me this, how, there are billions or trillions, I don't even know what the number is, of strands of DNA in your body. How is it that how do you reprogram all of them? This is kind of like one of those, how do radios work?
Yeah.
It's one of those really fundamental questions. And I always wonder, how do you actually get all of the DNA to respond to the therapy?
Well, there are two groups. I'm working with Dr. Jason Williams, and he's working on a chemical reprogrammer. So this would actually be a pill, and their goal is to hit every cell in the body. With gene therapy, we can't really hit every cell in the body, but what we can do is take your stem cells out, put them in a dish, and use the OSK factors on them. They don't lengthen telomeres, those OSK factors. That's why we have to use more gene therapy. But they can reset the biological age of those cells. So we have to put into perspective that your stem cells are repairing your body. And if your stem cells are youthful, then they repair youthful tissues. If they're old, they have a hard time regenerating and repairing your tissues in the quantity that would be needed to create a youthful body. So especially if you only have 5% or less of those stem cells left, depending on how hard you've been on your body in your life and how many times you've gotten sick. We know that if you have had a very sick trajectory from youth until now, your lifespan would be shortened because your telomeres and your stem cells and T lymphocytes are short. So, so the whole idea with this is to say, let's just take them out, reprogram them, and then we know that we've at least put in 1 billion of your own stem cells, and we can multiply them and make them more than the amount of stem cells we've taken out. And that they are kind of like the ship of Theseus. Instead of old workers rebuilding your body, we've got young workers rebuilding your body. But yeah, what you're talking about is with gene therapy is difficult to do. It's difficult to reprogram every cell in the body if I just inject gene therapy into you. We can probably hit 20% at a time, and then we would have to do that, let's say over 10 times because the layering effect would not be.
Okay.
And that's why people are working on the chemical reprogrammers, because they would be a lot cheaper, and then you could dose them as needed and then stop taking them and dose them as needed.
Right. And it's more of a universal effect than just a targeted. That's really, really interesting. Okay. Now you are known to be patient zero for a couple of these really innovative gene therapies. I think you're patient zero for the clotho gene therapy and follistatin. Yes?
And telomerase reverse transcriptase.
And telomerase reversal. Sorry.
And PGC1 alpha.
Also PGC1 alpha. How could I possibly forget PGC1 alpha? So
and we've got a couple new ones coming. So
okay, well let's stick to these, and we'll do another episode once you've had those done.
Okay.
So you reported some striking results. So, there's some really specific stuff here, like white blood cell telomere lengthening. This is going to be huge for immune function, which we all know immune function dysregulates, whether it goes up, down, or sideways. If your immune system's not where it needs to be, when it needs to be there in the right amount, in the right way, we have a problem. But they lengthen by the equivalent of 20 years. And then, of course, because of the follistatin, you would have seen gains in muscle mass, improvements in insulin sensitivity. So when you first saw these results, what did you think? Were you like, eureka, we've this is it? And did it feel kind of like this science becoming a reality, or were you just kind of cautiously optimistic saying, okay, let's see how long this actually lasts?
Well, we really didn't know, and we were hoping, actually, I think in a way we were massively disappointed.
Really? Why?
Yeah, over the years, we've been very happy. Over the years, we've been happy. For every year I've lived since the first gene therapy, I've taken telomerase reverse transcriptase a couple of times now, but for every year I've lived, my telomeres have lengthened by 5.3 years. And that we're really proud of. But when we first did the gene therapy, we had looked at some of the mouse studies, the skin studies, and things like that. And within 24 to 48 hours, they saw a change. Humans are a large organism, and we're very complex. But I think that we had hoped that in 24 hours, we would see this massive change physically. And really the changes came over years, which is probably because we hit the stem cells.
Right.
That would be also the effect of the telomeres lengthening in the white blood cells. And so probably what happened is when we first did the gene therapy, it hit the blood system, it hit the bone marrow, and it started its slow repair of my system. We did see a 20-year reversal in the T lymphocytes within, I think, 6 or 8 months. And that was amazing. But at the time, I had very short telomeres when I first did the gene therapy. And so they were the average age of a 60-year-old, which is not surprising. My childhood was stressful. I had lots of illnesses. My family dies young. My my great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather died in their 50s. My brother died in his 50s. It really was indicative of what we see. Statistical analysis would say that the death curve starts around 45 and then it extends. So after the first gene therapy, my first test was equivalent to about my age. And we did 2 testing systems to verify that. Then it got more exciting because as we watched it over the years, they continued to lengthen. And that's what we hope to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, exactly. Right. There's the money.
Yeah, when you first do something, and because we were the first company in the world to do that, and I was the first human, we had hoped for more magic. We had hoped that, within a week I'd wake up and we'd be like, oh my gosh, look at the changes. I took pictures every day in the mirror and they were really quite ugly pictures and they weren't changing a lot, and it wasn't until maybe a year and a half or so into it, people said, you're starting to look different. And I started to look at pictures and I was like, I am starting to look different. And then that was kind of the relief, but we wanted more, voila, magic.
Yeah, well, you wanted you were being the classic human. You wanted what's called instant gratification.
Instant gratification,
and that's kind of not the way the body works. I mean,
no, it turns out it is not.
And it makes sense if you think about it. It makes sense. I think what's really exciting, on top of the fact that it even works in the first place, is that you're getting this amplification of results over time.
Yeah, I think that's good because like you're pointing out, we can't really make Wolverine, right? Because Wolverine and X-Men
regenerates on the spot.
On the spot, and the amount of metabolic, I don't even know. I think you would have to have a feed bag, like somehow ported into your body, and you'd be needing to eat endless calories. So yeah, your body, it has to conserve energy. And that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's got to make new things. That just doesn't.
It's got a lot of jobs that it's already doing.
Sorry?
It already does a lot of jobs.
Exactly. Like I think people often forget that how many processes are happening in your body every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Like even someone who's really sick, as long as they are drawing breath, there's still a miracle happening in their body every second that they draw breath. And we forget that, right? So now here you are, like sending a message, rejuvenate, and your body's like, well, wait a minute. I got stuff to do over here. We'll get to it, and we'll keep it on the docket. But it's going to take a minute.
Yeah, and it was pushing, and it was saying, oh, now we got to do more.
Did you feel any different? Did you feel more tired, or did you feel that you had to support your system in a different way with food or supplements? Like, did you feel that you needed to kind of switch things around to support all of this now extra regeneration that was happening?
Yeah, I did. I definitely cannot do long intermittent fasting. I don't think that it's good for my body. Sometime about a year and a half or 2 years in, after I'd done the gene therapy, I think I did it. Well, I know I did it in 2015, but it was probably around 2017. Metformin became very popular. And I tried that, and it actually really, I think, hurt my body. My body did not want the SERT pathways blocked. It was not interested in that. It was interested in pushing forward. So when we look at, lifespan and pushing healthy lifespan in humans, we have, kind of two ends of the spectrum. So we have there's two ways to live a long time. One is to slow things down, your metabolic processes, slow regeneration and conserve. And in this one, you really want senescent cells. A lot of people say clear senescent cells, but actually they're one of our superpowers of being a long-lived species. They hold the line when our stem cells can't reproduce anymore. and they're not signaling anymore. And we need those senescent cells to hold the line. When you see somebody who's like 80 some years old or 90 years old and their skin is thin as a paper, without senescent cells, they wouldn't be alive. And so,
Really? Okay.
Here we want to really slow growth, and we want to hold healthy, long-lived cells as long as possible. On the other side, this is what we do. We're looking to build the first human that stays in homeostasis in repair mode. So we're driving repair, we're driving regeneration, and we are pushing metabolic pathways in a sense, as much as we should healthily do that.
Yeah.
And in this one, you need telomeres. So when people talk about aging interventions, a lot of times we fall in love with different ideas. Our company can reprogram. We can upregulate a myriad of proteins. We can drive muscle mass. We can drive repair. But without the telomeres behind the repair, you will just probably look pretty good and then be dead.
Right, because you have to extend that Hayflick.
You have to
factor, right?
Hayflick limit. And so when you talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I'm now in love with this company that's doing this. We want to just get rid of the senescent cells." If you do that and you have nothing to hold the line from your bone marrow to your skin to multiple organs in your body, you will be dead.
What do you mean by hold the line? What role are the senescent? Because you read my mind. My next question was, where does Senolytics fit into your program? But when you say the senescent cells hold the line, what do you mean by that?
They're basically holding places in which tissues can no longer divide and repair. And so the mechanism of the senescent cell it's both bad and good. Mm-hmm. So when you're down to 5% of your stem cells, you are not going to repair all of your skin anymore. You can't replace it with healthy dividing cells anymore. So that's when we see deep lines in the face. That's when we see, loss of organ function slowly. They're an important part of being a long-lived species. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to get rid of them, which we suggest that we do, because they also can become cancerous when things go bad,
right?
Then we need to have tissues that actually repair them. So those genetically modified stem cells become highly important, mm-hmm. and or just lengthening the telomeres systemically so that your stem cells get access to the gene therapy.
Okay. And so where do Senolytics fit into your world? In a world where you have all this regeneration going on all the time, I'm going to say intuitively, I'm thinking you still need to take out the trash once in a while because you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're pushing grow and go, you're definitely wanting to push the senescent cells out. If you're going to go for, I'm just going to be very conservative and just slow the growth of my body, then you're really not going to want to push them out. Not at the same rate. Okay. You would probably, you would want to signal your body to get rid of the worst players, but I'm not even really sure how you do that. So also, you have such a load of senescent cells at a certain age, you have to be careful clearing them. So that's another reason why we like the telomerase gene therapy, because it does signal cells to go through apoptosis if they're unhealthy. But if they're healthy, it lengthens the telomeres so that they have more cellular division.
Cool. Wow. Okay. I'm metabolizing here. It's fascinating information, right? Because it's looking at aging in a different way.
Yeah. We look at it, we build protocols and companies license those protocols and they work in humans. And so, we go really, really deep, and we go as far as we possibly can to understanding so that nobody gets hurt.
Yeah. Well, that's always nice. So you've been championing gene therapy for nearly a decade. How have you seen the field evolve over the last 10 years? It's leaps and bounds, right? Like it's what we're talking about here. It's like you're in it. It's not even like you're on the edge of it. You're in it.
Yeah. Well, when we started, there was only one approved gene therapy for lipoprotein lipase deficiency that had been recently approved. There was already the severe combined immune deficiency. And there are a slew of gene therapies in the cancer area that we don't talk about. But since then, there's been 12 approvals. And I think that's fantastic because it gives the world the idea that the concept is sound. It works. It works in children and adults. CRISPR is now being used for sickle cell anemia with complete success. And that's beautiful. That shows the world that, we were on base in the premise of thinking that this is probably the way to go. And now it's time to tackle what's called the complex or polygenic diseases, which are the diseases of aging and childhood diseases that are not single gene mutations.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and then, since then, of course, we've seen the rise of the Yamanaka factors. The Nobel Prize was won in that space in 2012 or 2013. But we saw the change in that technology going from Yamanaka factors that took cells back to embryonic and were pretty unstable to the OSK factors that takes them back just to a youthful adult that appears to have no increased risk of cancer, to now some of the super SOX single genes. And then there's other single genes that we're using that actually may express the youthful DNA methylation. I think that what happened is, there were just these single targets of genes for very specific areas, and now they're expanding in the gene therapy space. And so we're there, picking those up for patients.
So in the case of progeria, which is that aging disease, right? So you have a child that and I think they tend to die by the time they're 20, maybe
22-ish, 18
something like that.
22-ish, yeah.
So would that be like a multifactorial? This would be like the uber genetic condition to be able to treat.
It's a single gene mutation.
It's a single gene mutation.
Yeah, it's a single gene mutation. Wow. And the outcome is short telomeres. And so they're generally born with short telomeres, and their telomeres get short at a very fast rate due to the progerin. And this is, I don't know why these kids haven't been treated. I know we reached out when we first started to these groups, and maybe they're hesitant. Maybe they, are worried that, you don't know what you're doing. But
what could possibly go wrong? I mean, you're talking about people who are living like 2 decades, if that. And
there's a group out of the University of Texas that had built a therapy for those kids like years ago, and then they built an mRNA version of the therapy, and I still don't know if they've gotten access to the kids. The thing is that in many ways, it just feels like due to money, people don't care. There's only about 120 of those kids in the world. And it makes me very sad. So let me get over it. I don't know. It just, I don't know why we don't do things when it's the right thing to do.
Because you kind of might have the answer.
And if you could,
without overstating it.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like it's based on what we've been talking about. It sounds to me like you at least have a piece of the answer, if not the answer.
Exactly. And then we would know. And if we could treat those kids and they lived longer and healthier or looked more youthful, then it would be definitive that it would also treat aging in an aging adult system. So these kids, I have no idea. Like I told you, when I got involved, these were targets, and then they became so insurmountable that we just had to switch to an aging population.
So it's because these are children, they're kind of off limits.
Yeah. It's generally children's hospitals, like nationwide children's hospitals and the standard children hospitals around the world that would be responsible for moving these technologies forward. Researchers and doctors get super risk adverse. If you talk to a researcher, they'll say, oh, no, you shouldn't move forward. We got to continue to research. If you talk to a doctor, they say, oh, I don't want to get sued, so we shouldn't move forward unless, we have total clearance to move forward. If you talk to the regulators, we don't understand the technology well enough to move it forward. It's just, that's their job. That's their only job, is to understand the
to
technology.
The parents of these kids, or the kids themselves, like, well, not the kids because they're children, but that's not true. I mean, actually, that's BS. Like, if you're talking to a 12 or a 13-year-old who feels and never mind looks, but feels like they're 70 years old.
I think it's a fragile population.
Yeah.
I think that the parents are handled in a certain way as to avoid any tomfoolery, which makes sense.
I get that. Yeah.
I think that the children are protected and told that, you're okay the way that you are, and we're not going to push forward to do anything that's too scary because we're going to enjoy every year of your life that we have. These are the same type of myths that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Why has a lot of people who have the money not taken gene therapy to live longer? Because they think that something's safer or, less risky or something like that, even though we're not seeing the risk in these technologies at this point. It's going to come forward. Someone's going to save them later. There's going to be, I don't know what they think. I mean, we're all dying. And we tell ourselves this, this mystic sort of belief that somehow everything's going to be okay and we're okay just the way we are. And it hurts these children, and it hurts a lot of people in the world who could be thinking bigger. Somehow we have told people that it's okay to get a pig heart valve put in your body, which I support. Sure. Why not? Keeps people alive.
Yeah.
Over the fact that and then we act like it's not okay to take human genes that are natural to your body and just upregulate them. One seems more natural than the other. Human natural genes as a therapeutic made by your cells, or pig heart valve. So we have this sort of like crack through society in which one is too advanced for their mindset and the other one is okay. And we just have to realize that medicine is okay, that all medicine outside of euthanasia is here to help you live longer. We also want you to live healthier. And since we don't see negative side effects, we should be moving forward with those technologies over the ones that we do definitively see side effects, which are most of the drugs that we take today.
Whenever I can trade supplements for consuming nature's longevity compounds straight from a food source, you guys know I am all in. Extra virgin olive oil is one of those food sources. But it's not just any olive oil. I'm talking about fresh pressed, high polyphenol olive oil that actually tastes alive. That's what you get with the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club. We all know how much drama is happening in the olive oil industry. Now, TJ Robinson, aka the Olive Oil Hunter, travels the world sourcing the freshest, most nutrient-rich oils and ships them directly from each new harvest. No middlemen, no shelves, just pure flavor and nutrition. I drizzle it on everything. Eggs, avocado toast, even in smoothies. Sometimes it's that good. Sometimes I'll even take a teaspoon all on its own. And I always make my own salad dressing with fresh pressed extra virgin olive oil. Now, here's the deal. You can try a $39 bottle for just $1 shipping. No catch, no subscription required. You get your free $39 bottle for just $1 shipping and get to taste the difference that freshness makes for yourself. All you have to do is go to getfreshlongevity.com. That's getfreshlongevity.com for a free bottle, and all you pay is $1 shipping. And might I repeat, no subscription required. Once again, that's getfreshlongevity.com. Well, doesn't the pig valve require immune suppressing drugs?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
for the rest of your
right out
life.
of the gate is going to accelerate aging.
Oh yeah. But these are just, they're like immediate bombastic reactions to disease. It's a sick care system. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, and they do serve their purpose because they keep someone alive who might have died, even if they're not adding the advantage of, ultimate longevity.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's interesting, the optics on that. And I mean, we have to hope that eventually people will kind of. So, I mean, you've kind of answered my next question, which was all about public perception. And so people are still very much stuck in this old paradigm of this is the way it has to be. And how do you think that's going to shift?
I think that basically they're just going to see more and more and more people emerging who have taken these regenerative therapies and are not having side effects that they're having. I mean, vastly, the society believes that, you need to take drugs, that eventually you'll have to take drugs for the side effects of those drugs. And eventually you'll take 5 to 8 pills a day and you'll die anyway. And they need to realize that things are switching into a series of injections, and you set it and you forget it. And then we watch your levels over time. And if they start to diminish again, we go again.
Wow.
And
so, go ahead. Sorry.
It's easier, but I think that, it's kind of the old Christian mentality, we're here to suffer. And there's a level of suffering. And when Big Pharma says that their level of suffering is the one that everyone should uptake, then we tend to believe them. Mm-hmm. And it's just being shifted right out from underneath them. And a lot of people with the wherewithal or the financial ability are now leaving for the country for the gene therapies. Hopefully we'll be able to do them here in the United States. But this is becoming for people who can have scientific advisors or the ability to have people actually help them through the process. They're definitely on board.
That's amazing. So how many people have had the gene therapies so far?
Oh, well over 300.
Really?
And growing. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I would imagine, I'm sure there's like a whole mass of people on the corner going, yeah, no, not comfortable with that. But I can imagine that there's a lineup of people who are sitting there going, hit me up. And especially with every additional person, looking at you, it's been 10 years since you started?
Yeah, 10 years and many gene therapies now. The thing that we realized that when we went into it, and I realized when we didn't have the magic moment, is that we would have to focus on redosing. And so our company went into redosing protocols within the first 5 years. And I was redosed 5 years after my first therapy. And this is when we started to get right how to actually do that. And the science showed that you could redose gene therapies. You just have less therapeutic uptake. I think that we've gotten it almost to the point where you'll have 90% of the therapeutic upgrade that you would have had otherwise with your first treatment. And so I don't think any other company in the world actually knows how to redose gene therapy. So, we have worked so hard on innovating. We did the first ever treatment for dementia and published on it. We did the first ever, treatments for sarcopenia, chronic kidney disease. You name it, we have tried to go in and help patients. And, we collect that data, and we're pretty serious about, charging forth doing that.
So look, you are obviously a trailblazer, a pioneer, like the whole 9 yards. If you could pick one, what is your biggest win so far in this quest to cure aging? If there's one that's not, because I'm sitting here going, I don't even know how you'd pick, but is there one that stands out for you?
I don't feel like we're going to have a win until we're helping patients at a larger number. What I would like, my first win will be affordable gene therapy so that everyone can afford it. Because like you said, a lot of people want it. We get thousands of people contact us every year who want gene therapy, but they can't afford it. So patient access will be a very big deal. I work globally on regulations, and you're going to see new places coming in on board with new regulations for gene therapy. That's also a win for patients, but until they actually start experiencing it, I don't know. This is a pretty gloomy space. It's because it's not about money. It's about getting people well. And this year we'll have 36 million people die of biological aging, and a bunch of kids die of complex disorders. So I don't think that we measure this by wins right now. It's very early days. I would say actually it's really depressing that we haven't come farther. with all the effort that we've made, we don't get the support that we need. People are more interested in tricky fake technology that they can make money on rather than pushing the actual science forward. And so it's been a pretty brutal experience, honestly.
I'm sorry to hear that. But unfortunately, that is the burden of the trailblazing pioneer. You're breaking new ground all the time, and you're literally challenging the entire premise of aging. And you're challenging it. You're saying it doesn't have to be this way, but you're also moving people into a place where they have to rethink their mortality and rethink, what does my life trajectory look like, right? I'm going to be a small baby, then I'm going to be a child, then I'm going to be a teenager, I'm going to be unbearable, then I'm going to grow into a young adult, and I'm going to think I'm invincible, and then reality is going to smack me in the head somewhere around 35 years old. And then there's that decline, and then it's okay for me to sit around and do nothing because I'm achy and I'm dying and all the things. Yeah. And you're challenging that trajectory at its very foundation, which is it's a big deal. But that's why I also think, I wonder if, it's when you're going to be able to hit these diseases and show progress there. Because I wonder if in some ways, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I wonder if some ways people almost think this whole curing aging business is frivolous. But if you can take someone who's really ill and make them better, now it's somehow more legitimate.
Yeah, and we've shown that. We've shown that in papers that we could take people with dementia and we could increase their cognitive performance. We have plenty of patients who, they're now seeing drop in myostatin, increase in follistatin, and better metabolic outcome. We have that data, but I think that people need to see it on a bigger scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well,
and, challenging the premise. So we didn't just challenge, how long you're going to live, which probably made the whole of society uncomfortable. We didn't realize that we were challenging. And it makes sense. If you look at the media around us, they went after us. Some big groups went after us because we also challenged the drugs that you're taking today. Mm-hmm. We challenged every biotech company because essentially, without saying it, we said that if you don't have something you want to take, then you're not making the right drugs. If your drugs don't work, go home. Yeah. We crashed the idea that you should put money into a company that doesn't have human data. Mm-hmm. We made a lot of people sore, not realizing that we were going to do that. I mean, I took the gene therapies being someone's mom and almost like a public burning and saying that I think we can do better and I'm going to prove that we can do better or I'm going to die trying. And I felt like that was based in complete reasoning. It was absolutely highly logical. But when the media came out about it, which came out I think a year before we had agreed that it would come out. It came out a month after doing it. I really didn't know how to handle the media. Yeah. And I didn't realize how many ships we had burnt by doing that. And then you saw the response of researchers, oh no, this needed more research, because that's where they make their money. You saw, other companies goes, oh no, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to make sure a drug is safe first. A drug has to be in a human before it's proven safe. They just didn't have drugs that worked. You had the people who had been scamming investors out of money for 20 years. And we were saying, we're just going to find out if these work. Yeah. No, so it hurt a lot of feelings, I think. And that was not our intention.
No, but I think hurting feelings in that way, you're asking people to be willing to be challenged. And when people aren't willing to be challenged, that's when they get hurt. Yeah. And, when it contravenes, in my mind, the first premise of science, which is to have that hypothesis and always continually change it and lose the arrogance that you have the answer.
You can't have an ego in this space because it would destroy you. Because, when we came forward with that, then we became responsible in a way, for so many deaths that we couldn't seem to overcome because the regulators wouldn't let us in. We occasionally knock on the door. We have INDs and we get refused, even though we have human data. It's a very bizarre world. And so that's why I started working on regulations. I did my MBA thesis in regulatory, and I started pushing forward to find out how we do get patients access. So I spent about a third of my time on that to this day.
So I guess that really kind of that moves towards the next question I was going to ask you is, how do we make this affordable to more people? But before we can make it affordable, you have to be able to offer it.
Yeah. So there are zones now that are coming online, and then we are working with some clinical partners who are going to do clinical studies in their countries where after a phase 1-2, they can go live with the technology. Really what makes a difference is the numbers. And so when we look at the gene therapies that are available today in the United States, they run from $2 to $5 million each. Wow. And you either have the money or you die. Yeah. And that includes babies with severe muscular disorders and spinal muscular atrophy, and that includes kids with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy and Becker's muscular dystrophy. We're trying to help a kid right now raise $3.2 million to get into a study in the United States. It's an approved gene therapy. It's already approved, but he can't get it unless he has $3.2 million. And I just think that's, we did it. We're doing things the wrong way. If we would have just treated aging 10 years ago and we just would have got the funding that we needed, we could treat these rare diseases for free. We could just make one-off gene therapies and treat them for free in an accelerated regulatory path, which is what we push for patients. But instead, these are exorbitantly expensive because the population is very few and the investors want their money back. But when we're treating biological aging, we can do it the other way around. By numbers, we've shown that gene therapy drops in price. So if you have 10 people or one person, especially, it's going to be pretty expensive to make a gene therapy. But if you have 100, it goes down by 20%. And if you had 1,000, it goes down by probably 70% in cost. So then we will have an unlimited amount of number of patients. So we can actually then treat people at an affordable price. The $50,000, $70,000 gene therapy is coming. And these gene therapies are science-based gene therapies. They're done with vectors, so they will last in your body for, I just explained, there's a gene therapy that's 13 years later is still working. Mm-hmm. So, we may be able to protect your body for anywhere from 5 to 20 years at a time per injection.
Well, and you can imagine that by the time you're ready for your next one, so many more people will have gone through the pipeline that the price
absolutely. Even more, and they'll be through the regulatory system, a lot of them. And then we're working on CMV, which is a multi-combinatorial gene therapy delivery system. We could deliver multiple genes at one time. So you don't have to, honestly, the government will pay for them. The government would save trillions of dollars a year. By Sinclair's paper, The Cost of Aging, you can look that up, trillions of dollars a year by just not having to combat aging. In his paper, this sum $38 trillion a year is based on only slowing aging by 1 year. That's only slowing it by 1 year. And I would say with the technology we have today, we could do 5 to 10.
Okay, I have 5 different questions fighting for my mouth right now. Okay. So the first one that is sticking out of my brain at this very second is, at what age is it too late? Is there an age at which it's too late to do a gene therapy, like what we're talking about right now? Or are you going to get different results at different ages?
I would say we don't know. Okay. And I would say that one of the flaws of the U.S. Regulatory system is that their exclusion criteria in almost any therapy is 80. And I would say that those would be some of our best candidates, right?
Well, they're looking down the barrel of mortality at this point. So, it wouldn't be everybody as an 80-year-old who'd step through the door, but I would think that a fair number of 80-year-olds, particularly the ones who are feeling the burden of aging, right? You can have an 80-year-old who's very vital, you would argue that person would be a great candidate, but they may feel they have too much to lose. But if you have an 80-year-old who's suffering, they might be more willing to step through the door.
Well, I'm just saying the cutoff of 80 is just ridiculous, since some people, more people than ever, will live to be over the age of 100. So we should be helping those patients. So, I think that anyone who is out of childbearing years, that's kind of our criteria at our company, is a candidate for these gene therapies. And I can almost guarantee you that these will be used maybe in the next 20 years when they have enough safety data that everyone feels satisfied, that they'll be used in 20-year-olds. They'll be used long before you get the physical signs of aging. They'll be used to stop the accumulation of that damage as early as possible.
Okay, so let's move into the other part of the conversation, which is why maybe the government doesn't want people to have access to these things. Is there a possibility that on a moral and ethical level, which is the other side, I mean, there's a moral and ethical piece to let's just help people live longer, healthier, more vibrant lives. There'll be less of a drain on the system. They will feel better. People will be happier. Like there's that whole piece of the puzzle. But then I don't even know if the practical is the right word, but on the flip side, you might have a bunch of people sitting there going, well, what are we going to do with all these people? Like, shouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, if people just don't die, where do we put them all? Is there do you feel there's a moral piece to this conversation? I don't even know if moral is the right word, but practical.
No, I do think there's a moral piece to this conversation. I think that if we could cure dementia and heart disease and cancer today, it would be immoral not to do it. 100%. We never looked at a consequence like that in the past, where we said, oh, now we do open heart surgery, but we'll be keeping these people alive. And many of those people never actually come to 100% of their quality again. No. And yet we do that. And by all means, these people should be more active and more capable of being part of society and being part of paying taxes and everything else for longer. So I think that, the moral argument is actually against not doing it, right? It's if we lived in a day and age where we all lived to 1,000, let's say, or more, and we lived healthy, and then all of a sudden some subgroup of humans started to get some sort of plaques in their brain and die around 80, not even knowing who they are, we certainly would jump on that, just like we do infectious disease. And remember, if we go back to the 1916, if we go back to the 1600s, almost everyone died of infectious disease, 90% of the population. Right. It's because we took it really serious. And if we go forward to 1960, that's when the U.S. government finally decided to consider cancer a disease. It was actually considered just a normal part of aging. And that should sound very, very familiar to you. Wow. It was a normal part of aging. And so therefore, they didn't want to put resources into it. Now that they do, people live decades after diagnosis. And so we have to really always put into perspective, into our minds, the greater good for humanity. So if it's not going to cost us more if people are healthier longer, it's going to cost us more if people are sick longer. And if we are sitting on a treatment that could cure certain diseases or help people live healthier longer, it's murder to stop it.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Okay, brain's still spinning, but we're gonna come down to earth here. So, on a practical level, what does your personal longevity regimen look like today? Like, do you follow? Like, you've done these gene therapies. Your body is rejuvenating from the inside out. Certainly visibly. I mean, you guys need to head over to YouTube. Liz may or may not tell us how old she is, but she looks spectacular.
I'm 54.
You're 54. Doesn't look a day over 35. But so do you have a personal longevity regimen? Like, do you eat a certain way? Do you do certain things? Do you avoid certain things? What's your day to day?
The thing is that my life is kind of forfeit to the technology, right? So I do a lot of things that are probably unhealthy because I have to travel. I'm often in different time zones. I eat what I can when I'm traveling. I do believe in eating well and exercising. And when I'm home, I'll often pick up a task like I'll decide to have bricks delivered and do a retaining wall or over exercise, but I will exercise. I do have a little gym and I will exercise. And but the thing is, you have to realize I'm traveling most of the time. I hardly ever drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I'm a vegetarian, but I have been a vegetarian for over 30 years. So doing the gene therapy didn't change that. But I if somebody did my protocol, they would realize that they're beating themselves into the ground. I always say, if you have the wherewithal and you want to do the gene therapies and you have a better lifestyle than mine, then your outcome should be 100 times better than mine, because I have a high stress job and a high stress lifestyle. But I still, for my own ethical reasons, I'm a longevity person for everyone, I guess. I don't eat meat, and I do move my body every day. I'm an incredibly active person. Anyone who comes to stay with me is like, could you just sit down? So, and I do believe in working out. And I probably do it a few times a week. And I also believe in chilling out. And relaxing. And so often if I travel and I'm more than 6 hours out of my time zone, I'm not going to meet you in the gym. I'm going to take that extra time to rest. Because I'm an incredibly active person and I have an amazing amount of energy. So I'm getting it out one way or another, but I'm not going to overstress my body. So I think that you need to know when to stress your body and when not to stress your body. If you mostly live in the same place, you don't travel a lot, you should be working out 5 times a week. You should be alternating what you do. You should be eating healthy. You should be getting the maximum out of your lifespan. For me, I've got to eat when I can, and I move my body a lot.
I love it. What about hormones? Does the telomere lengthening therapy improve your maintain? Because we talk a lot in our little, I'm starting to say, our little sandbox of longevity over here in the corner that doesn't involve what you're doing. We talk a lot about hormone therapy for women in particular, because once we go through menopause, we we fall off the cliff. That in and of itself accelerates aging. So have any of the therapies that you've done addressed the hormones? Or is there a world where women don't go through menopause?
I think that we can't stop menopause because menopause is tied to the number of eggs that we have. Now, will we be able to stop it in the future? Perhaps we will, but I don't think that menses is definitely something that we need to do our entire life. So far, we have not been able to completely stop the hormone change. And actually, when the hormone change was happening in me, my doctor didn't even notice it. She didn't notice it for years because I had no physical signs of my hormones changing, but my menses pattern was changing. And I knew that, but I wasn't paying attention to it either because I had no drawbacks. And I was traveling so much that it wasn't something that was specifically on my mind. So I've gotten very interested in hormones. I think we did a podcast with, Thierry, what's his name?
Pertag. Yeah.
Dr. Pertag.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I found out that men, even younger men, were taking progesterone to sleep.
Progesterone, yeah.
Yeah, progesterone to sleep. So you can see I'm not like the most awesome hormone person.
Listen,
and
you have to have some limitations, Liz. you can't be perfect at everything.
But I became super interested in it. And there apparently is there's at least 3 hormones that you can replace in women to have an effect. Also the estrogens and the testosterone. And I started following Amy Killen, and I've become very interested in this. So absolutely optimizing, I think, is important. Now, some of the things that I see when people do hormone replacement, they're certainly more active and they're protected against a lot of conditions.
Correct.
But they may not necessarily look a lot younger than their age.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it cures everything, but I think that it's a really important part. And if I were you, I would do it. I've just heard nothing but positive about it. And so I would go for it. But as far as like totally balancing the hormones with the gene therapy, so far, no.
Well, no, it would involve keeping the ovaries, like it would involve keeping that whole, from the brain to the ovaries to the sex organs at a younger age as well.
When I talk to Dr. Bill Andrews, that's what he says, because I did ask him about that. I challenged him on that. I said, well, what's the deal then? Why do we see shifting hormones? And he said, well, it's because it's the eggs. It's the ovulation process of the eggs. And so, a hormone goes up and a hormone goes down, and there's this whole natural wave of how that happens. And we're born with a limited set of eggs. Can we fix that in the future? Probably. I mean, in the future, near future, you don't even need to have eggs to have a baby. You could take your own human skin and create a clone if you wanted a clone. The world doesn't need more of me, but if you wanted a clone, you could do that. There's going to be no limit to having children in the future. Now, you may have to have a surrogate, or you may have to use one of these companies. And one of the last talks I did, a few talks back, I was in Leipzig, Germany, and they have a company who's doing an artificial womb. And so, I mean, the future of like reproduction is pretty open. Now, a lot of people felt like we didn't need more kids, or they didn't want to have children, or didn't want to have more children. But for people who want that, I don't think that I think a lot of reason that women hold on to ovulation is because they want to have children. They want to have the option. And number two, they want to make sure their hormones are balanced. And that makes sense. Again, you fall off the cliff if they're not. So I think that science is going to solve a lot of those problems. But I don't even know if we need to follow the ovulation loop in order to be healthy, because I think now when they replace hormones, they just do it at one level. Like you don't have to do, is that true?
There are a couple of theories. There is one theory where they're reproducing the cycling of hormones in the hormone therapy in postmenopausal women. It's not as widely utilized. It's not as widely accepted. I think it's called the Wiley protocol. But for most people, it's not restoring hormones back to when you were in your reproductive years, but it's maintaining them at a level so that you don't experience the bone loss, you don't experience the cognitive deficits, you don't experience the hardening of arteries and the increased risk in cardiovascular disease. So in a way, the question I kind of wanted to ask you is, you're 54 years old, so you're at an age where technically the loss of those hormones, if you're not replenishing them, should be showing up, whether you feel them or not, in a loss of bone density and maybe changes in the brain or changes in the arteries. And from what I'm gathering from this conversation, you're not seeing any of that.
No.
Interesting. Really interesting. Right.
But,
so maybe there's more than one path.
Yeah. So there's probably more than one path, but, definitely don't stop doing what you're doing unless you're going to, start arming up for gene therapy.
Yeah. Well, I can start saving my pennies. I don't think there's enough life in my.
I think that, you got a friend.
I got a friend. Well, you never know.
It still is a lot of pennies, let me tell you, even having a friend. It's just the cost of the gene therapy itself is pretty astronomical.
For sure. Well, we're just going to have to get lots of people.
We're going to get lots of people. I think we should start it right now. Let's try to get 100 people coming and forward on the podcast and see how low we can go.
All right, guys, you know what? You've heard the call to action. If you're interested in this, reach out to me and we're going to start a list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it. Okay, so is there a book or a scientific study that has profoundly influenced how you think about aging or health?
I think when I started, I read George Church's Regenerative, and that was the idea of turning the human genome, flipping the double helix to a left-handed double helix. And I thought that was really interesting. I do read a lot of the books that come out but usually we're kind of ahead of that curve because it's less in the layperson's terms and it's more in the future forward. I think that some of the stuff that really sticks with me is being prevalent and promising is some of the old science fiction, the Philip K. Dick, but turning the trajectory of the negative dystopian future on its head to the positive. I think that I just feel like throughout history, we have been writing a narrative. And the narrative from the first writings, from around the first goddesses like Ishtar, all the way through until now, are writers in the memes of the mind. It was always said that we were born with the genes and the memes were like the cognitive forward future development that we're working towards. We have been building this narrative, and I think that things have gotten out of sync. So from the earliest writings, we're trying to cure disease. Some of the good players in something called the Bible, if anyone reads it, of Jesus wanting to cure disease and the limitation on lifespan. And now, I'm not a religious person, but these narratives are out there. And in the meantime, we had a highly unregulated system, which is the development of software and computing systems. And then we had a highly regulated system, which is medicine. And I really think that what we have been building was supposed to converge in the same time, because the technology that we have in biotech is far in advance of the technology that we're allowed to have in hospitals. And yet the technology on the computing has gone exponential. And I think that these two things were supposed to cross at a more relevant positioning to evidence our biological relevance. And so, I mean, I think that sounds really out there, but you can't deny that we have always been building something, and that we don't even revel in the things that we build. We build these huge buildings and nuclear power and a myriad of things that we just think we take for granted. But we are building a better future, and we've been building it for a very long time. And it shows in our stories. It shows in our narratives. It shows in the worry that we have for the future. We wouldn't be worried about the planet at all if we hadn't actually measured everything about it. Somebody said that to me the other day in a conference. They said, "Aren't you worried because the devastation that we've done to this planet?" Well, people living longer has nothing to do actually with that devastation. It's people who are living now and not living well and not living consciously about how they're living is the problem. So the person asking me is just as much a part of that problem as anyone else. But the only reason we know it's a problem is because we have decided to measure it. And that makes us a very super species. We're dumb and we're really smart
at the same time.
It's the measurement of that, and it's the stories that we have told historically. It's come out of the imagination of humans of what we would build and how it would be. That we're starting to culminate on this future. And so, like we said in the beginning of the call, I'm having a lot more faith in the universe than I had before, seeing it unfold. I'm having a lot of disconnect between the people who live on the planet today and the future that we are supposed to be probably living in already. So we tend to spend a lot of energy and time dumbing people down, teaching people sort of mantras that don't make sense. The US FDA says a drug should be safe to use in humans. That is a mantra that sticks with everyone, and yet they fail to make safe drugs.
A drug by definition is almost not safe because it's going to have, it has that 10-page document of side effects that comes with it.
Listen to any commercial that comes by that they're approving. And so like we have to get away from, the mantras, the mantra of playing God by using gene therapy. You played God the first time you took antibiotics, the first time you took your child to the hospital, the first time you had any sort of surgery to stay alive or any set of pills to still be here.
Yeah.
We have to get away from clutching to myths in order to move forward in the future. But for people who it might feel more comfortable, if you look back into history, all history, we have been building something amazing, and allowing ourselves to do that and culminate that and use things for the greater good is what we need to do. Otherwise, the outlaws will always control it, and they'll always have it, and they'll always determine its future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. All right, last question, Liz, before we sign off. If you could go back and give one piece of advice to yourself 10 years ago at the start of this journey, or 12 years ago, whenever it was, what do you think you would say to yourself?
Two things. I would have said choose your partners way more carefully. I've met a lot of horrible people along the way, people who are short-sighted. And I would say move a lot faster than you think you should.
Nice.
I'd say if you're going to break it, then break it.
Just do it.
And to use that as a response to the media as well, instead of being the mom that I was and still am, being apologetic. And I am proud that I spent 2 years trying to educate the public about why I did what I did, but I felt like I wasted a lot of time. I could have done both at the same time.
Right.
And so we didn't really get serious in cracking into the science even harder until 2018, I think. So I think I would say move a lot faster.
All right. Well, you're moving fast now. So Liz Parrish, how do people learn about your work? Where do they find you? And they already know to reach out to me if they're ready to step through the door. We're gonna get 100 people. We might get 2. You never know.
Yeah, the more the lower the cost, and so
the more the merrier and the cheaper. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't know the cheap is a word that comes into play, but
it might.
You never know.
So you can find the company at bioviva-science.com, and you can find us on social media. We mostly do just value-added pieces. I know that we have some groups that want to help us and step up, but we're not very good at self-promoting. We're good at working.
Yeah.
And so we usually put out a lot of papers every week about the cool things that are going on in science that you should know, peer reviewed and understood at their basis anyway, at the beginning of their basic science. And we even share some clinical trials going on for certain conditions and things like that. So if you want to learn more about the gene therapy space and how fast it's moving and how amazing it is, then you should follow us.
Love it. Liz, thank you so much for your time today, but more importantly, for the breadth of work and for having the courage to do everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, just a quick reminder that all of the information presented in this podcast is for information purposes only. No medical advice, no diagnosing, no treatments suggested here. Before you try anything that you hear about or learn about here, make sure that you check with your medical provider.